The massive hall stretched for what seemed like miles, filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Princess Nara stood at the center platform, her forearms crossed in a gesture that her people used to show displeasure. She was tall, even by Velkhari standards, with deep blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights. Her eyes were golden, sharp, and currently filled with contempt. The human delegation sat in the lower section, as befitted their status in galactic politics. They were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. Most civilizations had been exploring the stars for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. To Nara, they looked soft and weak. Only 2 arms. No natural armor. No enhanced strength or speed. How had they even survived this long? Ambassador Hyun was speaking again, his voice translated into thousands of languages simultaneously. He proposed a cultural exchange program between humanity and the Velkhari Empire. Military training exchanges, philosophical discussions, shared combat techniques. Nara could not hold back her laughter. The sound echoed through the hall, causing heads to turn. Several other Velkhari warriors joined in, their amusement clear. The very idea was ridiculous. What could humans possibly teach the greatest warriors in the galaxy? "Forgive me, Ambassador," Nara said, her voice dripping with false politeness. "But your species has no warrior tradition worth our time. You build machines to fight for you because you cannot fight yourselves. You are merchants and scientists, not soldiers. This exchange would be a waste of our resources." Silence fell across the hall. Many species nodded in agreement. Humans were known for their technology and their stubborn refusal to give up, but not for their combat prowess. Even the peaceful species considered humans to be physically unremarkable. A man stood from the human section. He wore a simple military uniform with few decorations. His name tag read, Lieutenant Day. He was not particularly tall or muscular. His black hair was cut short, and his face was calm, almost peaceful. He looked directly at Princess Nara, without fear or anger. "Princess Nara," he said clearly, "I request permission to address you directly." General Tarak, Nara's military mentor, leaned forward in his seat. He had 4 arms like all Velkhari, but his were scarred from countless battles. He whispered something in the ancient Velkhari language that the translators did not pick up. A warning? Perhaps. Nara waved one hand dismissively. "Speak, human. Amuse us further." Lieutenant Day walked to the center of the hall. His steps were measured, unhurried. "I propose a challenge, Princess. Train with me for 100 days. Study human combat arts. Learn our methods and philosophy. If at the end of those 100 days you find nothing of value in what we teach, humanity will withdraw this proposal entirely. We will never suggest a military exchange again." The hall erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Cameras focused on the human soldier who had dared to challenge a Velkhari princess. Nara stared at him, trying to understand if this was bravery or stupidity. "And what do humans gain if I accept?" she asked. "Proof that we have something to offer," Day replied simply. "Proof that strength comes in many forms. Proof that even the mightiest can learn from the smallest." Several Velkhari warriors stood, their 4 arms flexing in anger at the perceived insult. But Nara raised one hand, silencing them. She was intrigued, despite herself. This human showed no fear. He did not plead or grovel. He simply stood there, calm and confident, as if he truly believed he could teach her something. "You understand what you are asking?" Nara descended from the platform, walking toward Day. She was a full head taller than him. Her 4 arms could strike from angles he could never match. Her people had been perfecting combat for 3,000 years. "I have trained since I was 5 years old. I have never lost a single combat match. I am champion of the Royal Guard and heir to the Velkhari throne. You are asking me to waste 100 days learning from someone who would not last 10 seconds against any Velkhari child." Day met her gaze without flinching. "I am asking you to be willing to learn. If that is a waste of time to you, then perhaps your people have already stopped growing. Dangerous words. Several delegates gasped. To suggest that the Velkhari had stopped evolving as warriors was a deep insult. Nara felt anger rise in her chest. Her 4 hands clenched into fists. She could break this human in half without effort, but General Tarak was watching her carefully. He had taught her since childhood. He had always said that a true warrior must master anger, not be mastered by it. And there was something in this human's eyes, not arrogance, not stupidity, something else, certainty. 100 days, Nara said slowly. We will train together on neutral ground. The sessions will be recorded and broadcast for all the galaxy to see. When I prove that humans have nothing to teach us, you will accept your place as the inferior species you are. Agreed, Day said without hesitation. And when you learn something valuable from our methods, your people will approach this cultural exchange with open minds. They stood facing each other, human and Velkhari, while the galaxy watched. Nara was certain this would be the easiest challenge of her life. 100 days of proving human weakness to the entire universe. Perhaps it would even be entertaining. Ambassador Hyun stood and bowed formally. The Galactic Assembly recognizes this challenge. Station Osiris will provide neutral training facilities. May both species learn from this experience. As the assembly dissolved into excited chatter, Nara returned to her delegation. General Tarak pulled her aside. That human is not afraid of you, he said quietly in their native language. In 3 centuries of war and peace with humans, I have learned one thing. They are never confident, without reason. Be careful, princess. Pride has destroyed more warriors than any enemy ever could. Nara dismissed his concern with a wave. She was Velkhari. She was perfection in combat form. What could one human soldier possibly show her in 100 days? She would soon discover that she had asked exactly the wrong question. Station Osiris floated in neutral space between 3 major trade routes. It served as a meeting place for species who did not fully trust each other. The training facility occupied an entire section, with rooms designed for every type of combat imaginable. High-gravity chambers for dense world species, low-oxygen environments for methane breathers, and one perfectly standard room for a Velkhari princess and a human soldier. Princess Nara arrived on the first day, expecting a quick demonstration of her superiority. She wore light armor that left her 4 arms free to move. Her people had developed a fighting style that used all 4 limbs simultaneously, striking from multiple angles while defending with the others. It was considered the most perfect combat system in the galaxy. Lieutenant Day wore simple training clothes, no armor, no weapons. He stood in the center of the room, hands at his sides, looking relaxed. Cameras surrounded them, broadcasting to billions of viewers across known space. The Velkhari wanted everyone to see their princess dominate this arrogant human. Other species simply wanted entertainment. Show me this human combat art, Nara said, her 4 arms moving into a ready stance. Show me what you think you can teach. Day bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. Nara smiled. She launched forward with speed that would have been a blur to most species. Her lower right arm struck toward his midsection, while her upper left aimed for his head. Her other 2 arms were positioned to counter any defense he might attempt. It was a basic Velkhari combination. One she had practiced 10,000 times. She hit nothing but air. Day had moved somehow. Not away, but to the side and slightly forward. Her strikes passed through empty space. Before she could recover, she felt pressure on her leading arm, and suddenly she was falling. She hit the mat hard, more surprised than hurt. 8 seconds. The entire exchange had lasted 8 seconds. Nara stood quickly, her golden eyes wide. Again, she attacked more carefully this time, watching for his movement. She varied her combination, striking high and low simultaneously. 7 seconds. She was on the mat again, and she still did not understand how. Again, 6 seconds. 5 seconds. 4 seconds. Every time she attacked, Day was not where she expected him to be. He did not block her strikes. He did not match her strength. He simply moved. And somehow, that movement put him in a position where her own momentum worked against her. It was humiliating. After the 10th fall, Nara stood breathing heavily. Not from exhaustion, but from frustration. She had never been defeated so easily. She had never been defeated at all. And this human was barely trying. "How?" she demanded. Day finally spoke more than a few words. "You fight with perfect technique. Every movement is exactly as you were taught. That makes you predictable. I know what you will do because you know what you will do. Your style is 3,000 years old, and it has not changed because your people believe it is already perfect." "It is perfect," Nara insisted. "Then why are you on the ground?" Day asked gently. The question hung in the air. Nara had no answer. Perfect technique should win. Superior strength should win. 4 arms should defeat 2 arms. Everything she had been taught said she should dominate this fight. But she had lost 10 times in 10 minutes. Over the following days, Day began to teach, rather than simply defeat her. He explained concepts that Velkhari combat philosophy did not include: adaptability, reading an opponent's intentions before they acted, using minimum force to achieve maximum effect, fighting smarter rather than harder. "Humans are not the strongest species," Day said during one session. "We are not the fastest. We have no natural weapons or armor. But we survived on a world that tried very hard to kill us. We survived by being clever, by adapting, by studying our enemies and finding weaknesses." He showed her recordings of Earth animals, predators that hunted early humans. These creatures were stronger, faster, better armed, but humans hunted them to extinction or drove them away, not through strength, but through intelligence and endurance. Nara watched the recordings with growing fascination. She saw humans running after prey for hours, days even, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. She saw them setting traps and using tools. She saw them working together in ways that Velkhari did not. "Your people fight as individuals," Day continued. "Even in groups, each Velkhari warrior seeks personal glory. Humans learned that survival means cooperation. We are weak alone, but together, we are dangerous." By the end of the first week, Nara could last 20 seconds before being taken down. By the second week, 30 seconds. Progress was slow, but real. More importantly, she was beginning to see combat differently. She watched Day move and realized he was always thinking 3 steps ahead. He reacted to her intentions, not her actions. The Galactic media had expected to watch a proud princess dominate a foolish human. Instead, they saw her lose again and again and again. Many Velkhari were outraged. They called for her to abandon this shameful display. But others, younger warriors mostly, watched with different eyes. They saw that the princess returned every single day. She never gave up. She never made excuses. By day 20, something changed. Nara stopped trying to prove herself and started trying to learn. She asked questions constantly. Why did Day move that way? How did he predict her strikes? What was he thinking during combat? "I am not thinking," Day admitted. "I trained for so many years that my body knows what to do. Thinking is too slow. I feel your intention and respond. Velkhari are taught to perfect our technique until we can execute it without thought," Nara said. "This sounds similar." "It is similar," Day agreed. "But we also train to break our own technique when needed. Perfection is the enemy of adaptation. If you can only do one thing perfectly, you will lose to someone who can do 1,000 things adequately." On day 30, Princess Nara managed to last a full minute against Day. She even forced him to actually try, to move quickly rather than just efficiently. When the session ended, She was exhausted, but smiling. "I am beginning to understand," she said. "Good," Day replied. "Because tomorrow, we start the real training." Nara laughed. A genuine sound, rather than the mocking laughter from the assembly hall. "This was not real training? This was just showing you that you could learn," Day said. "Now, we teach you how." That night, alone in her quarters, Nara reviewed recordings of the day's session. She watched herself move, seeing flaws she had never noticed before. Wasted motion, telegraph strikes, predictable patterns, things that 3,000 years of Velkhari tradition said were proper form. For the first time in her life, Princess Nara questioned whether her people truly understood combat, or whether they had simply stopped evolving because they believed they had already achieved perfection. General Tarak's warning echoed in her mind. Pride has destroyed more warriors than any enemy ever could. She was beginning to understand what he meant. Days 31 through 60 brought changes that surprised everyone watching, including Princess Nara herself. She stopped arriving at training sessions with the attitude of a superior being forced to waste time. Instead, she came early, asking Day to recommend human texts on combat philosophy and military history. Day provided her with digital libraries spanning thousands of years of human warfare. Nara read obsessively during her rest periods. She learned about ancient warriors who developed fighting systems based on animal movements. She studied battles where smaller forces defeated larger ones through strategy and terrain. She read about human persistence, hunters who tracked prey for days without stopping. One passage struck her particularly hard. It was from an old Earth philosopher. "The bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists." Her people were the oak, she realized. Strong, rigid, unchanging. They had perfected one way of fighting and refused to consider alternatives. But humans were the bamboo, bending and adapting to every challenge. In the training room, Day introduced her to different human martial arts. Each had its own philosophy and techniques. Some focused on strikes, others on grappling. Some were defensive, others aggressive. But all of them shared common principles: efficiency, adaptability, and using an opponent's force against them. "Why so many different systems?" Nara asked during one break. "Humans should develop one perfect style and teach everyone that." Because there is no perfect style," Day explained. "Every method has strengths and weaknesses. Different situations need different approaches. A style that works in a tournament fails in actual war. A technique perfect for one body type fails for another. Humans embrace diversity because it makes us adaptable." He demonstrated by having her attack him in different ways. When she struck high, he showed her 3 different responses from 3 different martial arts. When she grappled, he responded with techniques from yet another system. He mixed and combined freely, using whatever worked in that specific moment. "You are not fighting with one style," Nara observed. "You are fighting with pieces of many styles." "Yes," Day said. "I learned from many teachers. Took what worked for me, discarded what did not. Created my own way. That is what humans do. We learn from everyone. Keep the best, improve it, and share it again." This concept fascinated Nara. Velkhari martial arts had been codified 3,000 years ago by the great master Tharok. Every Velkhari learned the same techniques, the same combinations, the same philosophy. To change any of it would be to insult Tharok's memory. But humans constantly changed their fighting methods, incorporating new ideas from everywhere. By day 40, Nara began experimenting. She tried using her forearms in ways that Velkhari masters would consider improper. Instead of striking in the traditional patterns, she used human concepts of misdirection. She feinted with one arm while attacking with another. She used her lower arms for grappling while her upper arms struck. She combined Velkhari's strength and speed with human efficiency and unpredictability. Day smiled when he saw this. Good. You are not just copying human techniques. You are creating something new. That is true learning. Off the training mat, they talked for hours. Nara spoke about the weight of being a princess and heir. Everyone expected her to be perfect, to uphold tradition, to never show weakness. She had been taught that admitting mistakes was shameful, that asking for help was weakness. Human leaders are different, Day told her. The best ones admit when they are wrong. They ask for advice from people smarter than them in specific areas. They see their position not as proof of superiority, but as responsibility to serve others. He told her about his own past. He had been a young soldier during the colony wars, humanity's first major conflict in space. His unit had been trapped behind enemy lines for months. They survived not because they were the best soldiers, but because they learned to adapt. They studied the enemy, changed their tactics daily, cooperated with local populations, turned their weaknesses into advantages. We lost half our people, Day said quietly, but we completed our mission. I learned then that survival is not about being the strongest. It is about being willing to do whatever it takes to keep going. Being willing to change, even when change is hard. Nara saw the scars on his soul when he spoke. This man had suffered and survived. He was not teaching her because he thought humans were superior. He was teaching her because he genuinely believed that sharing knowledge made everyone stronger. By day 50, something remarkable happened. Princess Nara landed a solid hit on Day, not because she overpowered him or got lucky, but because she outthought him. She had set up a 3-move combination that looked like one thing but was actually another. Day fell for the feint, and her strike connected cleanly. They both froze. Then Day laughed, a genuine sound of delight. Excellent. You are thinking now, not just reacting. You saw 3 moves ahead. Nara stared at her own hands, all 4 of them. She had done it. She had actually beaten Day at his own game. Not with strength or speed, but with intelligence and adaptation. The Galactic audience had changed their view as well. What began as entertainment had become something inspiring. Young warriors from dozens of species watched Princess Nara's transformation and wondered if they too had stopped growing. If they too had mistaken perfection for stagnation. Requests flooded human diplomatic channels. Other species wanted human combat instructors. They wanted to learn these principles of adaptation and continuous improvement. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, was suddenly seen as possessing something valuable, after all. But not everyone was pleased. Conservative Velkari factions watched their princess contaminated by human ideas with growing anger. Duke Minho, commander of the imperial fleets, sent messages to Nara's father, Emperor Quan. The princess was embarrassing their people. She was abandoning tradition. She was showing weakness to the entire galaxy. Emperor Quan watched the training sessions privately. He saw his daughter transform from an arrogant warrior into something more complex, more thoughtful. He was not sure if this was good or bad, but he recognized genuine growth when he saw it. General Tarak visited Nara during this period. He watched her train with Day, saw the new techniques she was developing. Afterward, he spoke to her alone. You are not the same warrior you were 50 days ago, he said. No, Nara agreed. I am better. Are you? Tarak asked. Or have you just become human? Nara considered the question seriously. I am still Velkari. But I am Velkari who understands that our people stopped evolving. We achieved greatness 3,000 years ago and decided that was enough. Humans never stop. They never decide they are good enough. They always push forward. And you think we should be like them? I think we should learn from them. Nara corrected. Take their principles of growth and adaptation. Apply them to our own strengths. Become something new. Something better. Tarak nodded slowly. He had been Nara's teacher for decades. He knew her better than anyone except perhaps her father, and he could see that this was not confusion or corruption. This was genuine evolution. The next 50 days will be harder, he warned. Your people will resist. Duke Minho grows bolder. But if you truly believe this path is right, walk it without fear. Nara placed all 4 hands over her heart in the Velkhari gesture of solemn oath. I will see this through, to the end. The political situation deteriorated as the training entered its final phase. Duke Minho made his move on day 65, issuing a public challenge to Princess Nara's honor. He stood before the Velkhari High Council and declared that she had shamed their people by losing repeatedly to an inferior species. He demanded she abandon this foolish exhibition and return home. Emperor Quan sat on his throne, 4 arms resting on the carved armrests that had supported 300 generations of rulers. He listened to Minho's passionate speech, then turned to the viewing screen showing his daughter's latest training session. She does not look shame to me, Quan said quietly. She looks stronger. She looks contaminated, Minho insisted. She moves like a human now. She has forgotten our ways. The galaxy watches our princess defeated daily and thinks we are weak. Other council members murmured agreement. Traditional Velkhari values emphasized never showing weakness, never admitting defeat. Nara's public journey of learning through failure violated everything they believed. But General Tarak stood, his old scars visible on his 4 arms. I have watched every session. The princess is not weaker. She is evolving. And evolution is how species survive. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, on Station Osiris, Nara knew nothing of the political storm. She was too focused on training. The final 40 days brought new challenges. Day stopped being gentle. Until now, I have been teaching, he explained on day 66. Now, I am testing. You need to be ready for the 100th day. The galaxy will be watching. Your enemies will be watching. They will look for any sign that this was a waste of time. He attacked her with intensity he had never shown before. Nara defended, using everything she had learned. The session lasted 30 minutes of constant combat. When it ended, both were exhausted. Better, Day said between breaths. Much better. But not enough. You are still thinking like a Velkhari who learned some human tricks. You need to think beyond both our styles. Create something truly new. That night, Nara meditated in the style Day had taught her. Human meditation was different from Velkhari practices. Instead of focusing on perfecting techniques, humans focused on understanding themselves. She examined her own motivations, fears, and desires honestly. She realized she was still fighting for the wrong reasons. Part of her still wanted to prove that Velkhari were superior. Part of her still cared what Duke Minho and the traditionalists thought. But the 100th day was not about Velkhari versus human. It was about demonstrating that growth and strength were not opposites. On day 70, Nara began teaching other Velkhari warriors who had come to the station. Word had spread that the princess was learning something valuable. Young soldiers, tired of the rigid traditional training, wanted to see for themselves. She showed them human principles, applied to Velkhari bodies. She demonstrated how their 4 arms could be used in ways the ancient masters never imagined. Some older warriors were disgusted, but the younger ones embraced it eagerly. They sparred with Nara, using the hybrid techniques. They adapted human concepts of flow and efficiency to their own superior strength and speed. Something new was being born. Duke Minho learned of these teaching sessions and saw them as further evidence of corruption. He sent agents to Station Osiris with a message for Lieutenant Day. They found him in the meditation garden, a peaceful area with plants from 100 worlds. Duke Minho suggests, you might want to lose convincingly on day 100, the agent said quietly. Allow the princess an honorable victory. End this embarrassment. We would be very grateful. Day looked at the agent calmly. And if I refuse? Then you would be wise to avoid traveling to Velkhari space in the future. After the agent left, Day sat thinking. He was not afraid of threats. He had survived worse. But he wondered if allowing Nara to win would actually help her. Would it satisfy the traditionalists? Or would they see through the deception and become even more hostile? He decided to ask Nara directly. "They want me to let you win," he told her the next day. Nara's 4 hands clenched into fists. "Of course they do. They do not understand. A false victory would destroy everything we have built. It would prove we were just playing games. It would also end the political pressure on your father," Day pointed out. "My father is emperor," Nara said firmly. "If he cannot handle political pressure, he should not rule. I will not cheapen what we have accomplished for the comfort of men who fear change." Day smiled. Good answer. The training intensified further. By day 80, their sparring matches were exhibitions of extraordinary skill. Nara could now hold her own against Day, sometimes even gaining the advantage. She had learned to use her 4 arms in combinations that no Velkhari had ever attempted. She incorporated human footwork, human timing, and human psychological tactics while maintaining Velkhari power and speed. More importantly, she had learned to adapt in real time. When Day tried a technique, she did not just defend. She analyzed, understood, and developed a counter. All in seconds. She had become what humans called a complete fighter. The Galactic media built up the 100th day as the event of the decade. Billions would watch. Bookmakers across known space took bets on the outcome. Most still favored Day, but Nara's odds had improved dramatically. On day 90, station security discovered an assassination plot. Someone had hired mercenaries to kill Day before the final match. The mercenaries were caught before they could act. But the message was clear. Some factions within the Velkhari Empire would rather kill than see this challenge completed. Emperor Quan himself contacted Nara after the assassination attempt was revealed. His face appeared on the screen in her quarters, looking older than she remembered. "You could come home," he said without preamble. "Call this experiment successful. Declare that you have learned enough. Avoid the final match and the risk it brings." "Father," Nara replied. "Would you have me run from a challenge?" "I would have you survive," Quan said. Duke Minho's faction grows bolder. They see this as existential threat to our way of life. "Perhaps it is," Nara said. "Perhaps our way of life has become stagnant. Perhaps that is why we have not grown in 3,000 years, while younger species rise around us." Quan was silent for a long moment. "I have grown," Nara corrected. "There is a difference. If you go through with this final match, I cannot protect you from the political consequences." Her father warned. "I do not need protection," Nara said. "I need you to trust that I know what I am doing." After the call ended, Nara sat alone thinking about what day 100 would mean. It was not just a sparring match anymore. It had become a symbol, a test of whether tradition could adapt or whether it would break. Day found her in the meditation garden that evening. They sat in silence for a while, watching alien stars through the transparent dome. "Are you ready?" he asked finally. "Yes," Nara said. "Not just ready to fight you. Ready for whatever comes after." "It will not be easy," Day warned. "Change never is. Humans have a saying," Nara said. "I read it in one of your texts. Growth happens at the edge of comfort. For 3,000 years, my people have been comfortable. Maybe it is time for us to be uncomfortable." 10 days remained until the final match. 10 days until the galaxy would see what a Velkhari princess had truly learned from a human soldier. 10 days until everything changed. The grand arena of Station Osiris had never held so many beings. Representatives from every major galactic civilization filled the seats. Those who could not attend in person watched through broadcasts that reached every corner of known space. Billions of eyes focused on a single training mat, where a Velkhari princess and a human soldier would fight one final time. Princess Nara entered first. Her 4 arms bare, except for light wrappings. She wore traditional Velkhari combat attire, but she moved differently than she had 100 days ago. Her steps were lighter, more fluid. Her golden eyes scanned the crowd, without the arrogance they once held. Lieutenant Day entered from the opposite side, dressed simply as always. No ceremony, no drama. He walked to the center of the mat and bowed to Nara in the human style. She returned the gesture with all four arms, combining Velkari and human respect protocols in a way that made both species in the audience sit up straighter. Duke Minho sat in the Velkari section, his face carved from stone. He had come to witness what he expected would be either humiliating defeat or obvious staged victory. Either outcome would serve his purposes. He would use it to prove that humans were unsuitable partners and that the princess had wasted everyone's time. Emperor Quan sat beside him, silent and watchful. General Tarak stood behind them, old eyes missing nothing. Ambassador Hyun represented the human delegation. He had gambled everything on this challenge. If it failed, human credibility in galactic politics would be damaged for generations. His hands were clasped tightly, though his face remained calm. The referee, a neutral official from a species known for fairness, stepped forward. This is the 100th day of training between Princess Nara of the Velkari Empire and Lieutenant Day of the Human Defense Corps. This match will continue until both fighters agree to stop, or one cannot continue. Are both participants ready? Ready, Day said. Ready, Nara confirmed. Begin. For a moment, neither moved. They stood studying each other, reading intentions, remembering 99 days of training together. Then, Nara attacked. She came in fast, all four arms moving in a traditional Velkari pattern that Day would recognize instantly. Her upper arms struck high, while her lower arms swept low. It was textbook perfect, exactly what any Velkari warrior would do. Day responded as expected, moving to exploit the standard opening in that combination. Except there was no opening. Nara had already transitioned into something else entirely. Her upper left arm, which should have been recovering from a strike, instead grabbed Day's defending arm. Her lower right foot swept his legs, while her remaining three arms created a wall he could not escape through. Day hit the mat. The audience gasped. First blood to the princess. But Day rolled instantly, coming to his feet with a smile. Excellent. You baited me with tradition and punished me with innovation. I learned from the best, Nara replied. They engaged again, and this time the fight was serious. Nara attacked with combinations that mixed Velkari power with human unpredictability. She feinted with one pair of arms, while the other pair struck from unexpected angles. She used human footwork to create positions that four arms could exploit in ways two arms never could. Day defended and countered with everything he had. He was no longer teaching or testing. He was fighting a worthy opponent who had genuinely mastered what he taught and made it her own. His movements were beautiful in their efficiency, wasteless and precise. They fought for 5 minutes without stopping. Then 10. Neither gained a decisive advantage. Nara's four arms gave her more options, but Day's experience let him predict and counter most of her attacks. When she tried something new, he adapted instantly. When he tried to trap her, she flowed around it. 15 minutes in, Nara caught Day with a spinning strike that used all four arms sequentially. He blocked the first three, but the fourth connected, sending him stumbling back. She pressed the advantage, driving forward with relentless combinations. But Day had taught her too well. She recognized the trap the moment she committed to it. He had deliberately left that opening, and now he had her overextended. His counter was simple and brutal. He used her own momentum to throw her, and for a moment it looked like the match might end, except Nara adapted mid-throw. She used her four arms in a way no two-armed being ever could, literally pushing off the air with one pair while grabbing Day with another pair. She converted the throw into a roll and came up in a defensive position. The audience was going wild. This was combat at a level most species had never witnessed. Duke Minho's stone face had cracked slightly. This was not the weak, contaminated princess he had expected to see. This was a warrior who had transcended both Valkyrie and human limitations. 20 minutes. Both fighters were breathing hard now. Sweat ran down their faces, but neither slowed. If anything, they accelerated. The fight became a conversation in violence, each exchange asking a question and receiving an answer. 25 minutes. Nara landed a solid hit to Day's ribs. He responded with a sweep that took her legs. She caught herself with her forearms, pushed off, and kicked him while still inverted. He rolled away, and they reset. 30 minutes. The referee looked concerned. Neither fighter seemed willing to stop, and continuing at this pace would lead to serious injury. But both were smiling now. Fierce grins of respect and joy. This was what combat should be. Not about domination or proving superiority, about two warriors pushing each other to absolute limits. At 35 minutes, by silent mutual agreement, they both stepped back and bowed. The match was over. Not because one had won, but because both had proven everything that needed proving. The audience erupted. Some cheered, others argued about who had technically won. But the wisest beings in the arena understood that victory and defeat were the wrong frameworks for what they had witnessed. Day walked to Nara and extended his hand in the human gesture. She gripped it with her upper right hand, while placing her other 3 hands over her heart in Valkyrie fashion. "Thank you," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "For showing me that growth and strength are the same thing." "Thank you," Day replied. "For being willing to learn. Not every warrior has that courage." Tented, they turned to address the galaxy together. Nara spoke first, her voice carrying through the arena and across space to billions of listeners. 100 days ago, I challenged Lieutenant Day because I believed humans had nothing to teach us. I was wrong. Not because humans are superior to Valkyrie, but because I did not understand what strength truly means. She gestured to Day with 2 arms while the other 2 emphasized her words. Strength is not just physical power or perfect technique. Strength is the ability to adapt, to learn, to grow, to admit when you are wrong and change course. My people achieved greatness 3,000 years ago and stopped evolving because we thought we had reached perfection. But there is no perfection. There is only continuous improvement. Duke Minho stood angrily. "You shame us, Princess. You admit weakness before the entire galaxy." Nara turned to face him directly. "No, Duke Minho. I admit that we stopped growing. That is not the same thing. A seed that refuses to become a tree is not strong. It is stagnant." Emperor Quan rose slowly. Every eye in the arena turned to him. He looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then at Duke Minho. Then at the assembled delegates. "My daughter has brought wisdom to our house," he said, his voice carrying imperial authority. "She has shown that the Valkyrie way is not weak, but it is incomplete. We will embrace this cultural exchange. We will learn from humans as they will learn from us. We will grow again, as we should have been growing for 3,000 years. The Valkyrie section erupted in chaos. Some cheered. Others protested. Duke Minho stormed out, his faction following, but the younger Valkyrie warriors, the ones who had watched every day of training, stood and raised all 4 arms in salute to their princess. Species from across the galaxy began approaching Ambassador Hyun. They wanted cultural exchanges. They wanted to learn these principles of adaptation and continuous improvement. Humanity, dismissed as weak just 100 days ago, had become teachers to the galaxy. In the quiet hours after the ceremony, Day and Nara sat alone in the meditation garden. The stars shone through the dome, same as always, but everything had changed. "What will you do now?" Day asked. "Return home. Reform our military training. It will take years, maybe decades. There will be resistance. But it must be done." She looked at him. "I cannot do it alone. I can streak center. Arning, Arning, Arning." The Valkyrie Royal Guard needs someone who can teach these principles. Someone who understands both combat and adaptation. Are you offering me a job? Day asked, with amusement. I am offering you a position of honor in the Valkyrie Empire. As Chief Combat Instructor. As my advisor. As my... She hesitated. As your friend? Day suggested. Yes, Nara said. As my friend. Humans have taught me much. Perhaps the most important lesson is that strength is found in cooperation, not domination, Day considered. He had no family waiting on Earth. His service to the military was complete, and he believed in what Nara was trying to do. Just the beginning, Nara agreed. Across the galaxy, the broadcasts ended, and beings returned to their lives. But something had shifted. Species that had stood static for millennia began questioning their assumptions. Young warriors from 100 worlds wondered if they too had stopped growing. And on a small blue world called Earth, humans smiled. They had proven themselves not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being willing to share what they knew. By being teachers rather than conquerors. By showing that humanity's greatest strength was lifting others up rather than pushing them down. Princess Nara and Lieutenant Day walked together toward an uncertain future. Behind them lay 100 days of transformation. Ahead lay years of challenge and change, but they faced it together, human and Valkyrie, teacher and student. Warriors who understood that true strength comes from the courage to grow.